All right, you guys. Quick check-in. 0 through 5. How you doing today? How's your Saturday been? It's been a little crazy around here for me. Just super busy, but excited to do the DBQ today. Hello, hello. Jamie's having a good day at a 5. So how are you doing? 0 through 5. Just general check-in. How you feeling? How you doing today? 5s. Sweet. That's good. You guys are having good days. So I just dropped you should be able to see it, that there's a resource that I just put up there, which is the documents I'm going to use today. Definitely make sure you can see it. It should be like, actually, I'm not even sure where it is. Let me see if I can, oh, here we go. Share with it. Here we go. All right, you should be able to see it now. I want to make sure that you have the documents. I'm going to project documents and like a blank document that I can write on, so you can see that. But it's easier if you can just also see the documents too. Infinity War made you cry, Dylan? Dang. I have no idea about Infinity War. All right. One other question for you is, when you want to know something about AP World, when you want to learn, maybe it's content, or you want to learn, you have a question about an essay, do you go to Google and type your question in, or do you go to YouTube and type your question in? Let me know which one you go to. Do you usually search Google for answers, or do you just search YouTube for the answer? Or something else? It's a simple question. Google, type the topic into Google. Cool. All right, cool. Google. Yeah, I was just trying to figure out where students tend to like type questions in. General topic, YouTube. Yeah, that makes sense. If you're like trying to get content, that makes sense. Okay, let me share this window. All right, so go ahead and make sure you have the documents. I shared them as a handout. I haven't done that yet on Demio, so make sure that you have access to it. And when you're ready to go, send me, I don't know, send me your least favorite emoji when you're ready to go. When you're ready, you've got the documents up. The documents are, I'm doing the 2017 DBQs. The documents look like this. So when you're ready to go, you've got the documents. If you're on your phone and it's hard for you to open up the documents, that's okay. You don't have to. But I just shared the documents with you as a handout. I think if you click, I wonder if I can share them in another way too. I think if you click the little like settings button, the documents are there. You should be able to see them. If you're on your phone, it's hard for you to access it like that. If you just Google AP World 2017 documents, that's the one. This is the released one. So because of the yodel boy. It's so funny that those two are your least favorite emojis. It seems like there's a bunch of other ones that are kind of ridiculous. Okay, so yeah, so make sure you've got the documents so that you can see them. So, like I'll be scrolling and stuff. So I just want to make sure you have them if you want to look at it again. So if you can't find them, can you just let me know so I know that you can't see the documents I attached. So sweet. So you can find, so I just uploaded the documents as a handout. It only lets you see the microphone settings. What if you click the little, yeah, let's see. Click the little guy. There's a little guy to click. All right, there we go. That's useful. So click the little guy. There should be like a little notification that I upload the documents. And if you can't get to the documents, just Google 2017 AP World documents. So, all right. So I'll make myself small. Okay, so let's go through this. I first just want to do like a quick little, let's just make sure that you guys totally understand. Let me pop out this chat. make sure that you feel good about the actual DBQ. You know, like this is like just like a quick background so that you can, I hate this. Sorry. All right, here we go. A quick background just to make sure, and I'll just take some general questions, and then we're going to run through this whole thing together, okay? So we'll have a practice one to do. Let me just make sure this is good. All right. All right, so DBQ. Also, if you could right now, just tell me, let's do it on a DBQ scale, so 0 to 7, where do you feel like you are on the DBQ? You could guess an average score that you've gotten before, or just like on a scale of 0 to 7, how good do you feel about it? Like how likely, you know, what score do you think you might get on the next one? That'll give me some sense of where you're at. Okay, so some of you guys are feeling awesome. Some of you guys are a little bit lower. So if you have any, as we go through, if you have any tips for something that I'm talking about, definitely drop it in so that we can learn from each other too. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so really quick about the DBQ, things to know is that it's 25% of your grade, of your exam score. You get 60 minutes to do it, which is a pretty decent amount of time. I know it can feel like that goes by really fast, but it's not bad. And then it's out of 7 points, right? 7-point rubric. Similar points similar to LEQ, but some like document specific points. And other things about the DBQ. Okay, so that's just like your general backdrop. This is how I attack the DBQ, and I literally went through this whole thing and did like a whole bunch of stuff today on this one. So this is like my couple steps to killing it on the DBQ. All right, and then we're gonna do it together. So like steps for the DBQ. So the first thing you want to do, so you get 15 minutes of, they call it a reading period, the first 15 minutes. It doesn't mean that you have to be like reading the whole time, but that's when you really want to be organizing and outlining, and you really want to like spend the first 15 minutes getting yourself really comfortable with all the documents and giving yourself just like a good starting point so you know how you're going to spend the last 45 minutes. I know that that might seem like a lot, but in terms of making the most of your 1 hour, your best bet is to spend like a solid 15 minutes on understanding the documents, organizing them, and outlining and writing your thesis. And definitely don't skip the documents, Dylan. That's not a good idea. So your first thing you need to do is to like read and understand the question. Okay, so that's like number one. You got to really make sure you understand what the question is. So if we hop over here, this is the question that is updated for 2018. I'm just going to copy it over here. Oh, come on. That's sad. All right, maybe it won't let me copy it. All right, that's fine. So here's the question. The prompt is to evaluate the extent to which religious responses to wealth accumulation in Eurasia in the period 600 BC to 1500 CE differed from state responses to wealth accumulation. This one's a mouthful. This one was on the test last year. Have any of you guys actually written this specific DBQ before? Maybe your teacher has given it to you. This seems to be the only one that College Board has updated for the new test. And it's gonna, you know, obviously this is doing a little bit of review because we're gonna go back before period 4, but this is very much gonna include that too. Yeah, it is hard. It's hard because of this, because it's all, you know, all of Eurasia. So that's a lot of territory to include. And then 600 BC to 1500, that's over 2,000 years of time to cover. So it makes this one kind of hard. However, when you really break down the prompt is pretty much asking you, how did religion and the state respond differently to wealth, right? So this is the, let's see, practice. So the prompt is, I'm not going to write down the whole prompt here, but I'm just going to kind of simplify it, because this is what you should do. You should take what they give you and try to simplify it to make sense of what it's actually asking. So this is comparative, right? So it's asking you, how did states and religious authorities differ in their responses to wealth accumulation? Yeah, it's a cool prompt. The only problem is it's just such a large time period. Like last year, they had to do synthesis. So this is why they all left the test. Like, how the heck was I supposed to do synthesis, right? It's just such a big time. So, read and understand the question and then simplify it. That's your like first step, is just like really understand what it's asking and just try to simplify it. So you have just like a clear roadmap, where you're going to go. In this case, it's clearly asking us, they've underlined the word differed. I don't know if they're going to underline the words for you. This is a great example of how they're not telling you this is comparison, but they are because of this word. So you want to find that word. What's the key word that's telling you? Is this prompt CCOT? Is it causation? Is it comparison? So in this case, the word is differed. So you are specifically asked to find how the state was different from religion in terms of the way they responded to people getting rich. Okay. And then you've got a whole big time period, and you've got a whole time, place. And then, states and religious authorities in Eurasia. Question is, because it says the extent, does our thesis have to be blank and blank differ to a blank extent? Yeah. So because it says extent, you are going to argue whether or not how different they were, essentially. I think just by providing, there's a couple of different ways that you can write the thesis, and we'll talk about the thesis in a few minutes. But you're essentially, this prompt is asking you to argue how different they were. Could you argue that they weren't different at all? Not really. It's kind of tough because it says evaluate the extent to which, but because they say differed, they're requiring that you specifically mention a difference. So you definitely will have to just like argue that they are different, essentially. Okay. So once you, really understand that, I almost forgot about the session. Oh, that's funny. Okay. So once you like understand the question, the next thing that you should do is read through all the documents and just keep track of how each doc answers the prompt. So basically in your first 15 minutes, like this, this takes less than a minute. This is going to take you probably like 8 to 10 minutes. This is the biggest chunk of that first 15 minutes because, or maybe, 7 to 10. I mean, maybe you can do it faster, but you're basically going to read through all the documents and keep track of this. And so, I can kind of show you what, like when I keep track of it, it kind of looks like, this. I have like a list, kind of can't see it. All right, whatever. But it's just like a list of the documents so that you can see exactly how each one works. So let me pop this out again. So, okay. So the way that you'll do this is docs. So we're just going to kind of make a list, and you want to do this on your, if you're following along and you're taking notes, I would do this too, so you can kind of see the process. But on your actual DBQ, on like scrap paper, like on the actual piece of essay that they give you, you can just kind of make some space and just do this. Just write 1 through 7. There's always going to be 7 documents. And now we're going to go through all the documents, but we're looking at them with a lens. So we really want to know, first of all, is this document the state or is it religion? And what does it say? How are they responding to wealth? What are they saying about wealth? And we're just going to keep track of that. And then afterward, we're going to come back and find differences between the two, right? So we're not thinking quite about POV yet. We're not thinking about analyzing them yet. We're not thinking about those things yet. We'll go back to them and think more about them. But this first shot, just think about how does this document answer the question, okay? So let's go through the documents. I just kind of want to give you in essence of time. I don't want to like read through all the documents, but maybe what we can do, if you have the documents open, would you guys be down if I gave you 7 minutes to read the documents or 5 minutes to kind of read through them? And then we'll talk about them. We'll come back together. Will that be easier? Yeah, let me send this link too. Okay, here's the link to. All right, so let's just do that. I'll just give you a few minutes, read through the documents. I just want you to look for it. First of all, is this state or religion? And what are they saying about wealth? Okay, so don't worry about anything else. All right, so I'll come back at like 6:21 and we'll talk about them. If you have questions, send them. We're reading the documents. So I'm just giving everyone a few minutes to just like look through the documents so that when we talk about it all together, you have a sense of what's going on. So you can just scroll up for the link right there. No problem. Yeah, you probably did. This is one of the only ones that College Board is like totally edited, so it's likely that you've done this one. All right, 2 more minutes, then we'll come back together. So even if you're not done after 2 minutes, that's okay. Okay. Why don't you just write, how many documents have you read so far at this moment? So if you've read all 7, you can write 7. If not, just tell me how many you've done. 6, all 7, 7, 7, 7. Perfect. Okay, so let's just start. Let's do this. So if anyone hasn't quite finished yet, just stop where you are. We'll go through them. So just want to have a quick conversation. Okay, so document 1, is it state or religion? State. Good. And then second question to that is, what in document 1, how does the state respond to wealth? What's their like message about wealth? What are they saying? So government can't take money. Yeah. Government should not interfere with commerce. Yeah. Okay. Number 2. And then you can tell me state or religion, and how are they responding to wealth? So for number 2, state or religion, and what are they saying about wealth? What's the state's? So you're right, this one's state, and then what is it that they're saying what's the response to people getting rich? Or what's the like premise here? What's the laws about how much profit can be? Yep, there we go. Okay, so we got state, we have to be state limits, not too much personal gain. Right. So like it's basically advocating for regulating commerce. Saying that they could have power over the merchandise, state limits, so that, right, state limits on wealth. Good. Number 3, state or religion. And then what are they saying about wealth? State. Good. And actually, it's kind of interesting because Cicero is a philosopher as well. So this one is kind of both in a certain like Roman way, but we can definitely say state. And then what is Cicero saying about wealth? What's the like, what's his response to people getting rich? State merchants should not gain too much power and gain wealth honorably. Yeah. They call people who give out and collect money are the worst. Yeah, they literally like vulgar means like you're the worst, right? Merchants are not good. Exactly. So we've got, first those occupations are condemned, right? We hate that stuff. Vulgar, unsuitable. State hates merchants and money lenders. He literally compares it to murder. Yep. Negative views of merchant profitability, but praise farmers and stuff because they work hard. Exactly. So it does say that agriculture is the best. It's the most profitable. So it's not like he doesn't have a problem with wealth. He's got a problem with people who like the get rich quick type of people, right? Values like hard work / agriculture. Right. All right, number 4, state or religion, and what do they say? Religion. Yep. Gaining wealth is literally Satan. Wealth equals devil. Right. So this one is coming from, basically all wealth is work of the devil and that it should be given away. It should be donated, right? All wealth should be donated. Good. Number 5. State or religion, and what's the premise here? Yep, so obviously this is the Quran, this is religion. So what is Islam's look on wealth? What do they believe should happen to wealth? Whoops. Religion. Yep, donate. Charity will atone for sins. Wealth is acceptable as long as one is giving to charity. Charity is encouraged. Right. Encourage charity. It is a pillar of Islam. You are correct. So encourage charity, and then like God will provide for you, right? So like if you give away your wealth, like God will provide for you. 6. This is a cool document, this one. So this is painting from the Buddhist cave temples. Right, so we're seeing Buddha and Central Asian traders who are doing what? What's happening in this picture? Wealth should be collected. Yeah, so it's basically like merchants should be offering gifts, right? Merchants should be, there's like blessings in return for gifts to religion, right? So give your wealth to the religion and there will be some sort of support from that. Good. And then last one, number 7, state or religion, and what are they saying about wealth? Yep, state. This is a ruler of South India. Here's an edict. Good. And this one, what's this platform here? What's this South Indian state saying about wealth? This one's kind of tricky. This one's less obvious than the other ones. So the ruler will let the wrecked merchants keep their stuff. So actually it's like only the shipwrecked stuff will get taxed. Leave everything except the fixed duty to those who have incurred the great risk of sea voyage, with the thought that wealth is more valuable than even life. So it's almost like, yeah, exactly. Letting them safety to sea traders. Exactly. So this is coming from the state and it's like protection, safety for traders. So there's like promoting wealth, right? They're making it like safer to do that. Okay. So that's the process, right? And that's how you should save time in the beginning, by just reading through the documents, looking for answers. You can get really caught up in the POVs and all that other stuff, and you're going to go back to that. But really spending time at the beginning, just kind of making that list is really important. So the next step that you have to do once you understand the documents is now figure out how will you answer, basically like use the documents to answer the prompt and write a thesis. That's our next step. So, when you think about thesis statements here, teacher tells you historical context. Yeah, yes, but that will come in later. That's the analysis of the documents. The first thing that you have to do, though, is just figure out how am I going to answer this prompt. So in this case, sometimes I would tell you to group the documents. In this essay, grouping the documents is a little bit harder. So let's just ask ourselves now, how can we actually answer the question? So remember our prompt here. How did states and religious authorities in Eurasia differ? So let's look back at the documents and let's figure out, what's the difference? While the state blank, the religions blank, something super simple. We're just going to kind of figure out what's the difference. So what are you seeing here as a difference between the state and the religious authorities and how they respond to wealth? So we're not worrying about groups quite yet. We're just kind of looking at what are some differences that we're seeing when we kind of look at this whole piece here. What's something that you're seeing is a difference? States promote rules that merchants would follow to make sure they don't attain too much wealth. While states encouraged limited wealth, religion despised it. State encourages it, while religion says you have to give it away. Wealth is generally viewed in a negative way. Good. These are all good. You're all right on the same track. The state encouraged wealth accumulation, where religion I already read that one. Religions encourage. Right. So while the state is essentially like protecting wealth, religions promoted redistribution, right? Another piece here is if you kind of think about their purpose, like another difference would just be like the state cares about the state, while religions, promote like ways to help people. Because a part of it too is just like if there's merchants with money, people are more likely to actually pay their taxes. And so the state cares about the state, they care less about how people are doing. They care about the state. That's a little bit of a difference. But this is like the big one here that you guys all noticed. And so when we actually write our thesis, this is how we're going to do it. So like you can see for your thesis, you don't necessarily need groups in your thesis, not in this case, because we're really just going to have to articulate one major difference in our thesis. And so the way that you would write your thesis is to sort of just restate the prompt, right? So between 600 BCE and 1500 CE in Eurasia. And then you're just going to kind of say this, a better version of that. So I've kind of pre-wrote one. So I'll write out the one that I have so you can see the thesis and what that would look like. Oh my God. State and religious responses to wealth accumulation. I know it's a super broad time period, and I know that it's a problem. Responses to wealth accumulation differed in that this is how you would start. Docs only go to 1 to 5. Oh, I know. I don't know why they would even put it as 1500. It's like one document goes close to that, but they really could have just limited this to a smaller time period, but they didn't. So accumulation differed in that the state wished to protect people's rights to property and fair prices, while religious figures promoted redistribution of wealth through charity and church donations. Boom. Maybe if you wanted to go to 1500, you could use background. Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so here you go, right? So this would be our thesis, and this pretty much like says what you guys came up with, and that would be what we wanted, what we should use for our thesis. So that's that whole process right there. Everything that we just did should take you 15 minutes or less on the exam to do these 3 steps. So in the first 15 minutes, you should be able to get a thesis. Okay. And that's how you're going to do it. Give me a, I don't know, a thumbs up emoji if you like, all right, I could do that. I got the 15 minutes down. I feel like I'm pretty good with the thesis. You can give me a thumbs down if you're like, I don't feel good about the thesis. Thumbs up or thumbs down. Oh. That's so weird. Thumbs sideways, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. All right, well, I'll stop asking for thumbs up then. That didn't work. Basically, I just want to know how you feel about that. So some thumbs sideways. So I think the best way for you to go about practicing this is to just practice those 3 steps. You can get any DBQ just to practice that. And even if the prompt isn't exact and, whatever, there's a lot of like that goes into having a good prompt that's updated for this exact test. But this is a good thing that you could do. You could practice these 3 steps using any practice DBQ in a prep book. If you just go to AP World Exam, if you just Google AP World Exam, and you'll come up to this first one. This just goes to College Board, and they have all the past ones uploaded, so you can access them. Okay, so when you just click past exam questions, so they're not going to be perfect, but if you just want a sets of practice documents, there's tons here. And so you can use the documents and just practice those 3 steps. Read through it, make sure you understand the prompt, read through all the documents, figure out how they answer the prompt, and write a thesis. Are all the DBQs on the test going to be this broad? It's hard to tell. Usually they haven't been. This was way more broad than we've ever seen before, but I have no idea what this year will look like. So, okay, so back to here. So, if you just sent a thumb sideways, practice these 3 steps. Practice them as many times as you can. And if you want to send me practice thesis statements that you write, I can look them over for you. All right, so step 4. This is when you're actually going to start writing. You can first, the docs you're iffy on. Yeah, I know these documents are kind of like, ugh. But, we can clearly see here that the government, is not, this is how the state is coming at this, right? All 4 from the state are promoting protection of wealth, right? So like even here, even though the government is not interfering with commerce, they're staying out of it, which means if you want to make a bunch of money, you can make a bunch of money and that's fine. They're not going to take that money from you. And then here, they're all, they are like letting merchants be merchants. Here is, he doesn't love them, but he lets them be. And all the religions are kind of like, you should give your wealth away, right? Another, like a similarity that you see here is just like a general distaste for merchants. Like it doesn't seem like anyone loves the merchants. Everyone's kind of like, merchants are the worst. So, all right, so back up here, the next thing that you'll do is actually brainstorm your context. Brainstorm and then write your context. So if we group them, we just group them in religion. No, you don't want to group them as religion versus state because this is specifically a difference. This is talking about difference. And so I know that it can get kind of challenging, but you still want to be comparative as much as possible. It's just like, yeah. So what makes this one so difficult is that it's just like, normally you group documents in a comparison that are showing the difference, right? But for this one, it's a little bit different. So I guess, you know what, I'll backtrack on that. I guess you can, in this case, group them How would we explain a similarity in words without specific evidence from the docs? Vera, I'll try to answer your question in a bit. All right, so let's just go to context, and we'll come back to how we're going to organize it, okay? So let's just brainstorm context. So obviously there's a lot of things that you could talk about. That's the beauty of such a large time period, but you can get caught up in this. So what are some of the things that you would talk about in your context? Remember, it's your previously on, right? But in this case, because the time period is so large, it can be things that are happening in the time period as well that are still giving a backdrop to this prompt. So what major developments in the world do you need to know in order to really answer this problem effectively? Dylan mentioned Neolithic, rise of empire. I think you could definitely say rise / fall of empires if you can connect that to the prompt. What else would you say? What other types of content might you put in the context? Right, so that would be here, Islamic caliphates, China, India, this is where you would talk about any of them, Rome. What else could you talk about? What's another broad topic that you could talk about in your context? Exploration, for sure. Religions, yep, you can talk about spread or like basic tenements, just like the general, rise and spread of religions. What else we got here? Silk roads, European exploration. So you just got to be a little bit careful with European exploration because that's kind of at the end of this time period more so. But with trade, you could definitely, some of you guys wrote Mansa Musa, Silk roads, trade, new trade routes, right? So you could just talk about the silk, sea, and sand routes, right? And you could give examples of people who are benefiting from that. You could talk about role of merchants for sure, or even like the rise of cities, of like merchant cities, the rise of trade cities, all those new cities that are springing up. You could talk about that. So really what you would want to do in your context is kind of, these are 4 like really big topics. You don't need to talk about all 4. Your best bet for your context is to pick one of these things and just do that. So, maybe you have, oh my God. Maybe you just choose to talk about the spread of religion and you would just write 4 to 5 sentences discussing the major religions and kind of, in general, where they are, what's going on, what's the deal here. And because the whole thing is really about trade, I would probably pick this one because I feel like you can do that one the best, right? And so let's get into actually writing this out. So we're talking about the Portuguese Empire. Yes. So Alexis, so in order for you to write the context, you still want to think about the backdrop. And so Portuguese trading and post-empire, it's kind of too late for this prompt. You really just want like a better backdrop, right? So, you could just kind of start out with trade, Eurasian trade routes between 600 BCE and 1500 CE expanded and contracted with the rise and fall of empires, right? And then you can kind of just like interweave those things. Like during the classical era, the Roman and Roman Empire, Han Dynasty were the major players on the Silk Roads. I'm trying to like move this up. While they were in power, the Indian Ocean trade network gained more traction during the post-classical empire with the like rise of the Islamic caliphates. But was also a strong trade network during the classical era. By the post-classical era, the Mongols reinvigorated trade on the Silk Roads, and I don't know, the sea routes were booming, which led to increased wealth for merchants. All right, so you see how I did that? So I just kind of wanted to write one for you so you could see it. This is kind of how I would do let's go to this new page here so you can see this example. This is how I would do context. So I just sort of picked one of the things that we talked about. And actually, in this case, I sort of wove together two of them. But you would get context for this because you're clearly giving some evidence to kind of understand this time period. And because you're going to talk about trade, this would totally work. So any questions about context? Like, that's the first thing you're going to write. Definitely don't skip it. That's an, relatively easy point to earn in terms of the rubric. So let me just put the thesis here, and this would basically be your intro. So this would be, let's highlight this. This is your context. This is your thesis. Okay. Context is difficult for me to recall. Yeah. All right. So the best thing that you can do to be ready for context is to just like really understand the major developments in each time period. So if I were you, Vera, something that I would do this week is to create a little chart for each time period, period 1, 2, 3, and so on, and just like write down some of the like absolute must know. Who are the empires that are there? What are the trade networks, right? What is that like basic stuff? And just kind of memorize that. Memorize like, 4 or 5 major key terms in every time period, and that will help you with context. Bethlehem, in terms of, do you necessarily have to put your thesis after your context? So you don't have to, but your thesis, this is like where it would naturally fit. And this is where the readers are going to look for it. So as they're reading, the most common formula for this is to have context and then have the thesis. And so this is the way that you should do it. And then you'll rewrite your thesis later. Okay, so usually what I suggest is that this next paragraph be for complexity, be like how you're going to get complexity. And so one way that you can do that is, in this case, is to the first thing you do, talk about a similarity. You could easily make this paragraph a similarity paragraph, complexity paragraph. So it could be a similarity. It could be synthesis. In this case, synthesis is really difficult. So this is why you kind of want like choice. You want to be able to say whether or not you want to know whether or not synthesis is going to be useful for you. And, it depends on what they ask you this year. In this case, synthesis is hard because this is talking about the whole world in 2,000 years. So not the whole world. So you could talk about Africa in a synthesis. You could talk about so counter-argument is a method of earning the complexity point. So if we just go to AP History rubric, this right here, it's the complexity point. It's that last analysis point that you can earn through this right here. See how there's like a list of ways that you can earn it? So one of those ways is synthesis. Another way is counter-argument. Another way, right? So like if this prompt is just asking for differences, so you could have a paragraph about similarities and get it that way. Another way that you can earn it in this case is to just kind of weave it into each paragraph. So as long as you are grouping the documents and kind of bouncing them off of each other, you can earn the point that way as well. So I'm leaving a note here as like, this is something you could do in order to earn this. You could write a similarity, like we noted a similarity is that, even though both state and religious authorities differed in the protections they offered for wealthy merchants, or I don't know, for the wealthy. They were similar in that they both despised or had a distaste for merchants in general. You could write a paragraph about that and that would help you get your complexity point. But I want to write one of the body paragraphs, okay? Yeah, so I'm going to show you how to get, okay. So the reason why I have you write a paragraph here, why I advocate for that, is because at this point, so there's 7 points you're trying to earn. You would have earned 2 already in your intro. You can earn 1 more in this paragraph, so you're already at 3. And then in your third paragraph, you really want to focus on outside evidence so that you can get that point. So that means you're 3 paragraphs in and you've got 4 points. So let's write one of these paragraphs. So if we were to write about, let's say the classical and post-classical states generally protected people's rights to property and fair market prices, which or I don't know, because in order to achieve economic stability, whereas which was not powers that religious authorities had. Okay, so you would want to start with like a topic sentence, and then let me show you how to take evidence from it. So in this case, which documents could we use in this paragraph? So if we go back up, so which documents are we going to use in the state? I mean, we're going to use all the state ones, right? Or at least a few of them. So we could use 1, 2, and maybe 7. Maybe we skip. Yeah, I would put, yeah, 1, 2, and 3, and then maybe 7. So when you take evidence from a document, do not quote. Forget the quotes. Don't quote unless it's like a 2-word phrase that you really want to take. But just don't quote. It's such a waste of your time. You don't need to do it. Just paraphrase. So, and then the second piece of advice I have for you is to never use the word documents in your essay. You're not going to lose points if you say the word document, but you're going to write a better essay and be more likely to earn some of these points if you don't use the word document. So in this case, we have so instead of using, you would cite document at the end, but you're actually just going to refer to this actual thing. So you would want to say, yeah, but even then, don't even abbreviate it to doc. Don't even use the word doc. So instead, you would want to say, in this early Chinese historical work composed during, so you would want to talk about the, let's say, like, what's the year? Like around 350 BC, Chinese political figure. Who is he? An ambassador from another Chinese state. Yeah, so like you could say a Chinese political figure discussed the state's platform against interfering with commerce as long as merchants were loyal to the state. So you see that, right? So like, I'm not saying the word document, just actually talk about the document, right? Just attribute it to the person that wrote it, right? As so-and-so said. So, you know, if this official said this thing in this year, this happened, right? In this image, don't actually, because in this case, I'm really going to be now focused on what they're actually saying and why they're saying it rather than a physical document. It just changes the way that you write, and it will make you a better writer to not use the word document. All right, so you would want to, this would be your evidence, right? This would be helping you explain the evidence. And then you could kind of put one more sentence to explain that, where it's like it was in the Chinese state's best interest to remain neutral, or I don't know, to stay out of the way of commerce, but they did require loyalty. So it's not that you're not going to cite it. At the very end of you actually talking about it, put it in parentheses, in terms of like this, right? This is just evidence, okay? So all I'm doing right now is the evidence. Okay, so you can cite it at the end. All right, so Ivana, that's a really good POV sentence frame, but all I'm doing right now, I'm not even worried about that quite yet. All I'm doing is evidence. So I'm just using evidence from the document to prove my point, right? That they wanted to protect people's rights and they wanted to stay out of the way. Stay out of the way of commerce in order to protect the rights of merchants, you know, whatever. And then you want to do HIPP. Okay, so to go back up here to the steps, brainstorm and write your context, and then add your thesis. And then you have a complexity paragraph, question mark, and then body paragraphs, which will always look like topic sentence, evidence from the document, and then analysis. And then keep in mind here that your analysis is what you guys were listing before. This is HIPP. This is historical context, intended audience, purpose, and POV. So in order to get this analysis point, this is referring to this point here, you have to do one of those four things for at least 3 documents, okay? So you can do it in any combination. It doesn't matter. You don't have to do POV. You don't have to do purpose, but you do need to do one of those 4 things for at least 3 documents. So your best bet is to do it for all the documents. No, the POV is not a point anymore. It used to be its own point. That stopped being its own point 2 years ago. So you can see here, it's on right here. So you can, for at least 3 documents, you can do one of these things. You can explain the document's point of view, the purpose, the context, they call it the situation, or the audience. So you don't have to do POV. Yeah, so POV, I mean, it is a really good way to analyze. And if you feel strong with that, then keep doing it. But you don't have to. So your teacher may have like decided that POV is the way to do it, but you can do it in any way. You don't have to do it you just have to source it. So everything in the analysis should be in each you should do it in each paragraph. You should do it twice in each paragraph at least. So in this case, if we were to analyze this document, we can use anything. We can use context. So you could use the context of the Warring States period. And so this document talks about, here, if you get the jade and lose a friendly state, wouldn't that be a mistake? So you could think about the fact that the states are at war. It's like during the warring states period. And so there's an effort for diplomacy and competition, right? There's clearly competition between the states. So that could be context. So Vera, you want to do, every time you use evidence from a document, you want to do one of those things so that you give yourself a lot of chances to get this point. So we just gave evidence from document 1. Now we need to do one of those things. So I'm going over an hour a little bit here, but I don't mind. I'm going to finish up this paragraph. Okay, so you want to do one of those things. So we like I said, we could do context. You could do audience, right? This is clearly being written to government officials. So maybe we say, you know, the Chronicle of Zoo. Oh my God. Was written during the warring states period. So there was an extra effort for diplomacy in the face of increased state competition. Okay. This would be your, this is an example. So this would get you towards that analysis point. Okay, so then you would give evidence from another document. So let's say we give evidence from document 2. There's no like correct number of documents that should be used in each paragraph. You want to use all 7 documents in your essay, so you can organize it in any way you want. If you have 3 body paragraphs, you could have, you know, 2 or 3 in each. Depends on how you organize it. All right, so then you would give evidence from another document. So evidence from document 2, right? Regulating. So if you give analysis once, we won't get that point. Right. Okay, so you have to do, so if we look back at the rubric, if you look at this here, this is the evidence point that you're trying to get. There's 3 available points. There's 2 for the actual documents. So it says here, you get both points if you support your argument using at least 6 documents. Exactly. So if you misinterpret one and if you do all 7 and you get one wrong, you talk about one incorrectly, you can still get this point. If you only talk about 6 documents and you get it wrong, you automatically bump down to here. Exactly. So you want to, my whole thing is like, you need your best chance to get the most points possible. And so you want to talk about all 7 documents. And then like here, like you have to do HIPP correctly at least 3 times. But if you do it 6 or 7 times, you're going to be more likely to actually get that point. If you only do it 3 times, like I read a practice, someone sent me their practice essay the other day, and he had only done HIPP 3 times, and one of them was incorrect. He didn't actually explain it very well. And so, in that case, he would lose that point. Okay, so we kind of see how this would go, right? And then you would have evidence from another document, another one, and then you would cite it too, and then HIPP. Evidence, HIPP. See how the process is going? So maybe in this paragraph, we decided we could fit 1, 2, and 7. All right, so do all 3. HIPP stands for historical context. It's up here. Historical context, intended audience, purpose, and POV. How would you analyze and give evidence from the doc with the painting? The same way you would do with the document with text. So with the painting, we're still not going to say in document 6. Instead, you're going to say a painting from the Buddhist cave temples shows, merchants from Central Asia offering gifts to Buddha, and then you can analyze it. For this one, you could say, because this was written on cave temples within Central Asia, the audience would have been Buddhists on the Silk Roads. So this was like basically, almost like a propaganda thing, right? It's kind of like something a Buddhist merchant could see on the Silk Roads, and they could see, okay, well, I'm supposed to offer something to them. See what I mean? Okay, so yeah, so if you guys use other things, that's fine. It doesn't matter. I used HIPP. It doesn't matter. Chippo is fine. Sounds kind of funny. And that one is talking about outside info, because you are going to need outside information, and that's important. So something that you could do for outside information would be, depends on what you're talking about. If we're like, for example, if we were giving evidence from this, you could talk about a specific tenement of religion. Like if you're talking about this document, outside evidence could be the other pillars of Islam, or could be anything else you know about Islam that isn't in the document. Same thing, if you're talking about this one, you could talk about this time period, right? Like clearly this, this is like happening in Europe. So this monk could be dealing with the fall of Rome. Let's see, if you're talking about, right. So you can kind of see like how this would work. There's a lot of things you can bring in to actually talk through your outside evidence. Yeah, Eurasia is just Europe and Asia combined. All right. So what do you guys think? Do you have questions about the DBQ? Does it make sense that this is how it would look? You've got your intro, you've got your body paragraphs. You want to try to do outside evidence at least once in each paragraph, because same thing. Outside evidence, you only have to do correctly once, one additional piece. But if you have 3, you give yourself 3 chances to get that point. So other questions that you want me to cover, things you want me to explain about the DBQ, we'll do another practice DBQ before. You don't need a conclusion. You don't need it. You definitely don't need it. What you can do in your conclusion, what you should do is restate your thesis in different words, because if you get the thesis wrong here and you have it in your conclusion, you could get the point in your conclusion. So that's a good idea, but you can just keep your conclusion just to restate the thesis. You don't have to write anything else in it. I mean, the thing is, conclusion can help, but only if you do it for restating the thesis. Like, you don't want to waste time doing too much more than that. I mean, it's like there's a difference between good writing and AP history writing. Like, that's just kind of the end of the game. You are writing right now for a very specific purpose. You are writing to earn these points. So everything you do, every sentence that you write, you should be thinking about the rubric. Is this helping me earn a point? Because you're just trying to play a game here. You're trying to pick up as many points as you can. Good writing has a conclusion, of course. But in this case, you're writing a timed essay for points. Just do the things you need to get the points. So don't worry about writing anything extra. Exactly. So do I grade DBQs? So when I went to the read 2 years ago, I graded, that was before it was like called an LEQ, and I graded the comparison essay. You used to have to write a comparison and a CCOT, and you'd have to write both. And there was no causation then. And so I graded the comparison essay. I didn't grade the DBQ. DBQ grading is usually really intense because you have to memorize all the documents. But I don't know. We'll see. See about this year. Any other questions on this? Do you know in what order we take each section of the exam? Yes, I do. No, the graders can see the documents, but the way that the read is like you have a stack of essays that you're grading. And so you sort of memorize things as you go to make it easier. And so it's just hard because, like, for example, when you do this, it makes the reader's life easier. When you actually cite the documents, it just makes it easier. Because if you were great, like imagine grading 1,000 of this essay, after a couple hundred, you've kind of memorized the documents. You're going to know what they are already. But when you actually cite it, you're just helping the reader out. So I don't have to double check. It just knows. I can probably grade an essay depends. It totally depends. But like, on average at the read, I would say it takes a grader anywhere from like, I mean, some of them are really easy to grade because they don't write a lot. Some of them are very complicated to grade because they write in like circles and they'll repeat things and they make it really confusing. But I would say I would probably grade an essay on average in like 2 to 3 minutes, because you know exactly what you're looking for. You know the rubric, you know what you're looking for, you know what you can find, and so you can find them rather quickly. But that's on average. So there were a lot of essays. There's hundreds and hundreds and thousands of essays that take a lot longer because, you know, and keep in mind, the reader is not just trying to fly through them. They're going to read every single sentence that you write, but you start to read it very quickly. No, you don't lose points for you don't lose points for anything. There's nothing on the exam that you lose points for. You only earn points. So if you're repeating things and you're confusing, it's just gonna the reader just has to slow down and try to find. All they're doing with every essay. It's like a little scavenger hunt every time. I know you open the essay and you're just trying to figure out, can I find, you know, there's 6 points available, there's 7 points available. Can I find them in what the student has given me? If I can't give the point. If I can, then you get the point. So it just, you know, the more clear you are on what the points are and how to organize your essay, the more likely you are to get the points because you are, you know, doing exactly what the reader's looking for. But no matter what, the reader is just going to they're looking to give you points. So you asked, is there an order of the exam? There is. And it goes in the order that they have on here. So they basically, you'll do the multiple choice, and then you'll do, the short answer, then the DBQ, and then the LEQ is last. Next time you do this, can you pick a hard one like this prompt? Yeah. I mean, they're all about the same. I don't know. It's hard to tell. I wonder if because this was last year, if they'll go easier this year. I don't know. All right. Any other questions on DBQs? And the next time we do this, I'll do a practice DBQ probably bye Dylan, for period 6, and I'll probably do the decolonization one because that's a really hard one, and that will help you see it. But I would definitely just practice this. So when you go from the DBQ to the LEQ, they tell you when you should be starting. I believe they do, but it's possible that they don't. I'll have to kind of double check on that. I'm not sure if they just give you all of it and say, here you go, you have an hour and 40 minutes or what. No matter what, you should just keep track of time anyways, just in case. You know, your proctor is not going to be the same as everyone else's. So they're supposed to be, but sometimes they don't. So I would just take time into your own hands and just pay attention to the clock. Alexis, have you done a practice essay yet? Have you done a whole mock exam? Would they stop you while you're doing the DBQ to make sure you start the LEQ? They won't stop you. They might remind you. They'll give you like a heads up, but I don't know. I don't know if they give you the DBQ and then they take it back, or you know, then they collect it and then do the LEQ. I'm not sure. Okay, so something I would recommend to all of you, if you haven't done this already, is to take a practice exam. And I'll grade it. I'll grade it for you. So if you do a practice exam, you know, get a prep book or even just search online. I think there's an entire practice exam on here. I think there's one that's posted. So if you search for it, you get the practice exam, you should do it. Take the whole test. Don't do this one. Don't do an old one. Try to do one as recent as possible. And if you really can't find one, email me and I'll send you one from a prep book. You can, do the whole thing, do the whole practice exam, do the actual, do all of it, and time yourself. Like, set it up as if it were as close to test conditions as possible. Even get up in the morning and do it at 8 a.m. on a weekend, Is it worth it to take more time to do your DBQ than your LEQ? At my mock, the teacher didn't take the DBQ. I mean, you don't necessarily need more time, you know, like, so don't value one over another. I know that they're weighted differently, but you want to pick up as many points as you can in the DBQ, but you also want to pick up as many points as you can in the LEQ. So don't necessarily decide ahead of time that you're going to take more time for something. You want to just practice the timing so that you can just get it all done in the timing that you have. Okay. All right. So I'm going to leave you guys there. Definitely do a practice one. So if you've got time tomorrow, for example, or next weekend, I would just recommend getting a practice test, sitting down, setting timers, pretend, you know, go through it as if it were the real test, handwrite it, or you can type it up in this case. And then if you want to send me what you did, I have a spreadsheet that we can plug in all your answers to, and I'll figure out whether or not you got what score 1 through 5 you would earn, and I'll give you feedback on that. Okay. No, once they collect it, you can't go back. And once time is up, time is up. So you would have to be able to stay on track for that. Okay, so this is a question about synthesis. Yes, Mary, you can send me whatever you'd like. So if you want to send me an old DBQ, go for it. So look, your synthesis could go in the conclusion. That's fine. You're not going to lose points if you put it in the conclusion versus someplace else. I have sort of just restructured an outline in order to be more time effective. So to help you get more of the points, I'm saying to put the synthesis right after the intro, but that's just like a time saver. You could put it in your, like, just logically, it makes more sense in your conclusion. It's just that this is a timed essay, that's all. And so I'm just saying put it faster. That was something that my students actually did. They just started doing it different. They were just trying to game it and figure out how many points can I get the fastest. And so they started doing it that way. And I was like, that's a great idea. Do that. I just want to see you guys pass. So, okay. So if you want to write any of your practice DBQs, send them to me. Feel free to email them to me. And then second, I sent you guys a survey yesterday. Hopefully you got it. If you haven't taken it yet, if you could take it. And if you send that survey out to others, any AP students. So if there's other AP students, AP classes at your school, send that survey out and have them put in your email as the referral. And I'm going to be next weekend randomly choosing 2 of those referral emails to give you. You can choose either 1 hour of tutoring with me, just you and me on Skype, or a $75 gift card for Amazon. So if you want to win one of those things, refer this survey out, get it out to as many people as you can. And the more people that take it with your email, the more chances you have to win. Does that make sense? So that would be really useful for me. And the link is Fiveable AP. Here it is. I'm going to type it in for you. Yep. So I'm just trying to learn more about AP students and what they do and what their habits are, so I can take all that data and make an awesome app this summer. And so the more students that take this, the better the app will be. And I'm going to reward you for sharing it. Okay. Okay. That's it. I will see you guys next week. I'm probably going to do a bonus session this week, I'm thinking. And so I will hit you guys up when I have a plan. Cool. All right. If today was useful for you, can you just like drop a 1 in the chat so I know it was useful? Sweet. Ones. All right. I look forward to reading practice essays you guys write, and I will see you guys later.